Number 14. By Limesicle on AO3. Summary. In which there are no heroes. In which Katsuki still remembers. In which he gets another chance. Katsuki is 13 years old and the top of his class. He has never had a childhood friend. He has never dreamt of being a hero. He has never felt explosions rip from his palms. He shudders into consciousness, the dreads of another nightmare clinging to his thoughts. Echoes of someone calling, Kachan, Kachan, fading from his ears. Another 13 years, and he hasn't forgotten his sin. The weight of someone else's life. Green eyes and self-blame that turns to ashes in his lungs. The name Izuku sits somewhere in his throat, ready to fly through his lips, but never spoken. He is Bakugo Katsuki, the multi-talented genius, an athlete, and the premier highest scorer in his class. He is rough around the edges, and guilty, haunted by the ghost of another era. But Katsuki is not strong like he once was. Smoke doesn't rise from his palms when his anger boils over. He is just human, a child with guilt of someone twice his age. Trauma that doesn't belong in the superhero-less world. He meets Izuku on the same day he died in another life, and wonders if this is some sick kind of poetry. Katsuki is living in a twisted mirror image of whatever he remembers, and he wonders if this one had a better end, if he deserved peace at all this time, or if it's just a continuation of his sentence. With no quirks, there are no superheroes. With no quirks, there are no supervillains, only shitty human beings. With no quirks, all he has in his armory is adrenaline, luck, and his own bare knuckles. He meets Izuku, and the scene in front of him makes him choke. This time, it's Izuku held hostage in front of a crowd of people. A man with no sense left, only anger and a misaligned sense of justice, screaming threats. A captive audience, standing still, frozen with fear. Adults, police officers, doing nothing but gape. So Katsuki steps forward, because it's what Izuku would do. What Izuku did. The yell rips from his throat, and it makes the man turn his way. Katsuki swings his backpack from his shoulder and lets the momentum carry it on a path towards the man's face while he drives for Izuku. His arms reach until fingertips make contact. Katsuki clutches Izuku to his chest, probably too tightly, but there is no complaint. Behind him, he hears a commotion, and then a click as someone pulls the man in handcuffs. His knees shake, but Izuku feels steady, solid. No longer a ghost or a dream, but flesh and blood. Something shifts in his chest. An old wound finally starting to close. This time, Katsuki is called daredevil, reckless, foolish. But he's born worse, and he bears it with the knowledge that he did what was right. So he waits for the reprimand to end, while his gaze remains fixed on Izuku. He wonders if he's a stranger to this Izuku. He should be. His memories of quirks and villains don't belong to this world, this universe. Izuku stands with his shoulders hunched. He remains silent as the meds check him for injury and ask a few questions to determine whether he's in a state of shock or not. "I'm all right," he says, squeezing his hand together like he needs something to hold on to. He straightens his back when the medics finish his examination and turns towards Katsuki. Green eyes rise to his, no longer crimson, but reddish brown, and hold him captive. He has seen Izuku's face form into determination, resistance glow in his eyes, when he was powerless against flame and ash, even with tears in his eyes and trembling fist. He always stood strong, so it shouldn't surprise him to see Izuku steady now, average, as always, and no longer one of the few workless people left in a civilization of superhumans. Um, Izuku starts, still timid, but resolved. Thank you for saving me. Katsuki's gaze falls to the ground. His eyes trace a crack in the pavement. It's nothing. What anyone would do. He has never been one of those sorts of pleasantries, especially when they aren't true. I. He tries again. I had to. He confesses. And even for 3 words, it's hard to keep his voice steady. Izuku smiles. Not a full smile, but a slight upturn at the corner of his lips. And Katsuki thinks his heart stops. Something pulls at every fiber of his being. And even if someone asked, he wouldn't be able to explain why his eyes are stinging. He must have forgotten what that smile looked like. I'm Midoriya Izuku. The words are followed by a hand offered, and Katsuki stares. Izuku is reaching for him once again, and he remembers a time when they were younger and he fell off the log bridge. He sees Izuku's arm outstretched, leaving the crowd behind in an attempt to save. Fire rises in the periphery of his vision. And my legs moved by themselves, and your eyes were calling for help. Echoes in his ears. Izuku's hand trembles slightly as he holds it in the empty air, halfway between the two of them. Katsuki hesitates a moment longer, his heart beating in his throat, and then reaches his own hand forward. He manages to introduce himself, even as the emotions within him threaten to overflow. With the last syllable, the dam breaks. He is equal parts guilty and relieved and overjoyed and hesitant. Tears cascade down his face, and he barely registers the alarm in Izuku's expression. Not until he hears, Kachan, it's alright. And for the second time, in as many minutes, his heart forgets to beat. Because Izuku opens his arms, and pride be damned, Katsuki surges forward. The rest of his tears fall on Izuku's shoulder. It takes a couple months before they talk about their past properly. And once the words leave their mouths, their memories begin to fade. Although the ghosts never truly leave. In another year, they attend the same high school. Not UA, not for aspiring heroes. A few of their classmates are familiar faces, but they are not quite the same. Hair for Brains has black hair. The alien girl looks human now, with tan skin instead of pink, and no horns. And while he was never particularly curious about what Invisible Girl looked like, he finds it strange to be greeted by her when she actually has a face. Half and Half still has a scar, though, and sometimes Katsuki wonders, if he should have asked. The other Todoroki never embraced his flames, only used them when it was the only way to survive, a blue inferno, in the wedges of his father's anger. Katsuki wonders vaguely if he, at least, made it to his 30th birthday. He isn't optimistical. They have Aizawa as their homeroom teacher, and a couple of other pros teaching other subjects. No one tries to attack their campus. No hero killer threatens society. No League of Villain starts a war. There's a third year who was once the number one. There's a third year who was once the number one hero. Still blonde, still eccentric, still crashes into walls on occasion. It was never common to see him sad. But Katsuki wonders if he's happier without the burden. No dead mentors, no tortured child to save, no quirk to lose. He even spots a couple of villains. Not villains anymore, just people. He wonders if they're any better off being powerless. A high schooler with double buns finds her place in the drama club. She's friends with the slightly scruffy clerk at the convenience store, who's only recognizable because he still carries the alias of Twice. There's a nameless paramaniac on the loose too, and Katsuki doesn't mind that their paths never cross. One day, He spots All Might, tagging along with a family he doesn't recognize. They look like regular people. The father appears to be a businessman, and the kids are squabbling over candy. Altogether, there must be 3 generations, a grandmother along with her child's family, and All Might. His blond head looking out of place amongst the dark hair. Katsuki meets his old teacher's eyes, by accident. For a moment, the man pauses, and Katsuki wonders. But All Might continues his way, the small boy pulling insistently on his arm. Through high school, he has Izuku at his side, and every time someone refers to them as friends, he wonders if that's something he's allowed to be. Izuku studies hard and still dreams of saving people. He still scribbles in his notebook. No longer facts and figures about heroes, but statistics on disease and data from the most recent breaking medical advances. He has 13 filled notebooks. And something catches Izuku's throat when he sees his Izuku reach the end of the last page. Some part of him is still apprehensive, dreading that somehow Izuku won't make it to the next one. But Izuku picks up a new notebook and scrawls number 14 on the cover, pauses a second before he sets his pen down. Katsuki asks him about his hope for the future, what he wants to grow up to be, and why he's studying so hard. Izuku smiles. Even if there aren't superpowers, we can be ordinary heroes. He laughs a little at his own words. I still want to save someone. You saved me. Katsuki's jaw clamps shut when he registers what he says. Forget it. Did I? The expression on Izuku's face takes a different tone. His brows crinkle, and he looks away from Katsuki to the floor. I think I'm still working on it. Katsuki stiffens, feeling like a bucket of cold water was dumped on his head. You don't need... You shouldn't. Izuku touches one hand to his chest, and Katsuki's jaw snaps shut. The point of contact burns. You're the strongest person I know, Izuku murmurs. But that doesn't mean you have to do everything alone, and... Izuku lets his hand drop back to his side. If I had been lucky, the story would have a different ending. But I wasn't. Sometime in the second year, Katsuki realizes he never had a dream of his own. His only goal had been to become the hero Izuku never got to be, to make Deku the greatest hero of their time. At one point, maybe he had his own reasons for being a hero. Many of those desires were long eclipsed by the need to do something to obscure his guilt. The sense of self-blame continues to nag him, no matter how many times Izuku tells him it's alright. But the nightmares are fewer now than they once were, and it feels like his lungs had finally cleared of ash. It's been so long since he was able to breathe easily. Maybe it has something to do with the nights where he slept over at Izuku's house, and mornings when Izuku shakes him from his bad dreams. Sometime in their third year, Katsuki forgives himself. The realization comes slowly that guilt doesn't choke him every time he looks at Izuku, that smoke no longer makes him flinch, that the old wounds has scarred over. Katsuki finds himself staring, and Izuku smiles, like he understands. I never blamed you for it, he says. He has said these words before, but Katsuki feels them resonate for the first time, like he believes them, like he's finally able to accept Izuku's forgiveness and forgive himself. Katsuki drops his head into his hands. A finger prods his shoulder. Kachan, are you crying? What? No. He accidentally raises his head, which gives away the lie. Izuku pulls him into a hug that Katsuki takes a few seconds to return. It still amazes him that Izuku is living and breathing in front of him, that he can press his ear to his chest and hear a steady beat of a heart. Izuku rubs circles on his back until he relaxes. Kachan. Katsuki comes to show he heard, but doesn't raise his head. You should follow your own dreams this time. Izuku says, I don't have one. Being with you is enough. He doesn't say. Izuku doesn't respond. But maybe he already knows. In any case, he lets Katsuki stay as long as he wants, just listening to the rhythm of his heart until the sun goes down. Katsuki feels like he's allowed to live. Just live. No longer dreading another day of fighting for empty causes. No longer working himself to the bone to blaze the name of the boy who killed into a legend. No longer a hero. He's just Katsuki. Just Kachan. This was nice. It's an interesting premise. And I actually really, really enjoy the style of this author's style of writing. You are doing such a wonderful job. I think your style is actually super interesting, and it was really enticing to read this out loud. It was super fun, super nice. I want to know what you guys think about this fanfic, specifically this one shot. Tell me in the comments below. I chose to have it the thumbnail picture be obviously the rain scene because I thought it would be appropriate since I had the gist that this is where it was going to steer to. I feel like it's a Bakudeku fic, but in the sense of like, it is hinted at but never outright said. You know, considering that Bakugo literally went, you know, I don't need a dream, all I need is you, or somewhere along the lines of that. Hold up, let me find that specifically, which is, I don't have one. Being with you is enough. Right? That is gay as hell, so I'm gonna keep it as Bakudeku. It is tagged as a Bakudeku fanfic. Yep, it is tagged as a Bakudeku fanfic, so I'm gonna leave it as a Bakudeku. So yeah, what is he doing? Sorry, if you hear ringing in the background, I don't know if you could hear that bell. We recently got Storm a breakaway collar with a little bell, and it was super cute, it was super adorable. We got him that and then a harness because I want to train him to have harnesses so he could have, you know, supervised outside playtime. Also to take him on walks, because I think that'd be fun. Don't worry, I know dogs and stuff like that. And this neighborhood has a lot of dogs. It has like 2 stray dogs that walk around on a regular basis, and then it has like some dogs that are inside. But Storm is a shoulder cat. Storm likes to be on my shoulder, so I could very easily pick him up and, you know, have him up. So yeah, it's a harness with a leash. It's super cute, and I'm so happy to get that. So yeah, as always, my raindrops, make sure to eat, sleep, drink water, take your meds. Have a wonderful day or night. Link to my Discord server and socials are down in the description. Subscribe to see more of my content, and thank you so much for watching.